I'm going to be installing the SPE upper coolant hose on a 2017 Ford F-350 Super Duty. So you got this upper attached fitting there. You got your hose. This is the engine mount. This is going to replace that housing down on the actual engine. You got some clamps that come with it, and Powerhouse Diesel Performance. They hooked me up with some swag, keychain, whatnot. So I'm gonna start out with the upper adapter. So it's got this O-ring. I already put the O-ring, the packing in there, and just used a little bit of Vaseline on that seal there to assist it in going in. So let's go ahead and start doing that. All right, here's the upper attach fitting. You just lift up on this clip here, and that slides out, and then down here is another one. You get this on there and slide it out. You might have to play with it a little bit to get it. Okay, so the best way to get to that I found was to come under here, and with the corner of your screwdriver, grab that little tab right here and pull it up just like that. And you can see that's out. And then once that's out, you should be able to just pull that hose off. And as always, you probably want to drain some of your coolant out before you remove this hose. Otherwise, you're going to lose a bunch of coolant out on your engine and onto the ground. So you can do that by loosening the little pitcock on the bottom of the radiator. So next, when we replace this adapter, it's going to just be these bolts here. But I'm going to go ahead and install this piece up here first. Okay, this is the old coolant hose. You're going to need to keep this clip for this one once you get that installed. So I've heard this part can be the difficult part, getting this to go on. So I'm going to try my method. I've seen people just kind of bang it on, but I don't really want to do that, so I'm going to try a different method. But one thing to note are there are these grooves right here, and there's grooves on the radiator that those have to line up with. So make sure that those are lined up first before you start trying to put that on. So here's what I'm going to try. Okay, so here's my first attempt. I got a clamp. I'm going to try to squeeze it on there and see what happens. Oh, there she goes. There she is. Slid right on. And in my opinion, that's a lot better than having to try to hammer on things. I mean, sometimes you need to bust out a hammer, but I think that worked really well. So now I'm going to just double check, make sure it's fully seated, and then we will put this retaining clip on. Okay, so she is fully seated. So now I'm just going to slide this clip in place, just like that. All right, next we're going to tackle the bottom. Okay, so I'm just going to take these bolts off here, and if you want, you can get something and suck that coolant out if you want, so it doesn't go all over the engine. And I would also highly recommend shoving a rag into that tube, just so you don't drop any hardware down into it. And these are 8mm bolts. They don't take much to break loose, and you got 3 of them. So I'm just using a little 1/4 inch ratchet with a extension with that 8mm on there. Okay, so there are these little washers on these bolts as well, so make sure when you're pulling these up that you hold on to that little washer. And I got a little magnetic tray here. It's always good practice to set the bolts down in the tray how they came out, because in this case these bolts are different lengths, which it's very obvious that they're different lengths, but sometimes you have bolts that are, you know, only a few threads different, so it's always good to make sure that you know which hole to put it back into when you go to reinstalling it. So once that's off, you can take this thermostat housing off, and if your thermostat is old or it looks rusty or anything, this would be a good time to replace it. Mine is in good condition, so I'm not going to replace it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? So let's go get the other thermostat housing and get that installed. Okay, so here's the thermostat housings. This is the stock with that quick disconnect on there, and the stock hoses usually leak because of these quick disconnects quite frequently, so this one bypasses that with just using a traditional hose clamp setup. I noticed the bottom is slightly different, has these little sleeves in here, so I'm going to just double check and make sure I don't have to take those out. Okay, so those little fittings do come out, but the SPE thermostat housing is drilled to size for the bolts already, so we're not going to be using these fittings here. And just a little note, if you do have too much coolant in your system, you will get a little bit of seepage out of there. If I pulled that thermostat out, it would dump all over because not enough is drained out, so there's still some fluid there. So we're gonna go ahead and just put this on here. Big difference when it goes to putting this on versus the stock one is the stock kind of has those little sleeves that help you to align the thermostat with the block, so just keep that in mind. I like to set things in place and get everything started by hand. You don't want to be putting any power tools on here and stripping threads out or having to retap your block. That's going to just cause a lot more work. So I'm going to go ahead and get these installed, tighten up, and then we'll get to the next step. Okay, I got all of those bolts tightened down. Those 3 bolts, 2 long bolts go closest to the inside of the engine, and the short bolt is on the outside. And I tightened those down. I like to bring them all down evenly, so I kind of just bring it down to where it just gets just a little snug on each one, and then once it seems like it's pretty tight, I went maybe about another 1/8 a turn on those. Don't go too tight, you don't want to, again, strip things out. Alright, next we're going to install the hose. You want to get your hose clamps on there before you put it down in the hole. So I got one here. I need to put this one on, and then I'm going to go ahead and slide it on over the thermostat housing. Okay, I got the upper radiator hose clamped onto the thermostat housing down there, and this seems to be the best setup. That is a 6mm driver bit. One thing that I noticed was I had to reposition my clamp, because initially it was sitting right up against this cannon plug right here, this plastic cannon plug. and I didn't want the heat to radiate off of that metal clamp onto that plastic plug there. So this seemed to be the best and easiest setup to get that tightened. Remember not to over tighten those clamps. If it starts looking like the clamp starts twisting, you want to definitely stop. Okay, I just filled my hose a little bit with some fluid to try to help prevent air in the system. I'm still gonna kind of do a good bleed on it, but I just poured a little bit down there to kind of help with that process a little bit. All right, that is all installed now. Looks much cleaner. I want to make sure that it's not rubbing on anything hot. And make sure that's not contacting it. Okay. All right, now I just gotta fill my radiator, cool it back up, and start her up and bleed the system and see how she does. Hopefully this video was helpful. I'm looking forward to not having to deal with that heat wrap and all that. This hose is a lot thicker and can withstand the heat a lot better, and so a lot better material. So, all right, well, hopefully this video helped, and y'all have a good day.